Welcome to Center Cup. I'm Will Neary here with Nick, as always. Nick Newmeyer, that is. I should give your last name a shout. You can see it in his little tag there. That's his Twitter handle. It's all there. We've got episode 66 today. We've got a lot to cover, but nothing lots of little things. I feel like we usually spend 30 minutes on one thing. I don't know that we're going to do that today, but we've got a bunch of time to spread out between a few things, including, as you can see in the title here, Wyndham gets that BMW Championship win. I do think the biggest thing probably is going to be the continued LIV news. Again, we continue to have some news, a little bit of news. We'll get into it. We'll get into that. We'll start with the quick hitter recent news, though, Nick. I think, right? And the two things. We'll start with the first one here. Solheim Cup team was announced for the U.S. Any initial reactions to that? I know, I don't think there was anything particularly unexpected. Obviously, headlined by Nelly Korda, but beyond that, what was your initial reaction here?
Yeah, that one was obvious. I think everybody was talking a lot about the captain's picks that were going to be the big ones, that being Lindy Duncan, Megan Kang, and Rose Zhang. Rose Zhang was the interesting one. That was the one that kind of stood out to me. I think we're a few years into what we thought was going to be the Rose Zhang era, especially coming out of Stanford. Thought she was going to be a really good, a really force on the LPGA that just hasn't really taken that stride to be the dominant player that we thought she was going to be yet, but nevertheless, she is going to get that experience on the Solheim Cup. Every time I type it out, I keep typing out the Sondheim Cup, as in Will Sondheim, the Northwestern professor. But so the Rose Zhang will be playing in the Solheim Cup, not the Sondheim Cup, even though the Sondheim Cup would be incredible, but
very different.
Very different, yes, but entertaining nonetheless. But yeah, this is a team where I know we said we were going to be able to compare them a lot more between Team Europe versus Team USA once we knew both those teams. And yeah, I would say that Team Europe probably has a bit more of an edge. There are definitely some names on there. Nelly Korda, obviously the big headliner. Yeali Minot, coming off of the great result at the AIG Women's Open. Lauren Coughlin was obviously very good this year as well. So should be some good players on this team. Should be a very good tournament. I don't know. I'm thinking the internationals might have this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to predict. You never know how these things will go. But yeah, I mean, just by name and face value, I guess I'd probably lean in the same direction as you. I think the other thing that came out the last few days, it was yesterday, 2 days ago, this whole good Callaway driver ad. I really don't want to spend much time on this. I think it's pretty simple. I think it's insane that this ad, if anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, there's a Good is sponsored by Callaway. They had a driver coming out, like a Good ex Callaway driver, and a clip came out from their ad for it that basically was one of their athletes, who's a woman, picking up a driver, which I guess is their main guy, Garrett's driver, and then he pushes her to the ground, says, "Don't touch my driver." Then it just cuts to black. It's so we're just, I don't know what message was supposed to be taken from that, other than something very dark and not encouraging to, in a world of growing the game and expanding the LPGA and women's golf as a whole. Obviously that was not a great message to send. I imagine that I have trouble believing that was the message they were trying to send, but it's hard to understand what else you would take away from that. But I mean, just insane that made it through what I presume is a lot of levels of marketing over at Good and stuff. But
that's the one that really makes me laugh the most is in their official statement. It took them a few days to address this, but they made a statement. They said, "We posted a video to our channels that ultimately depicted actions that are not aligned with our values as a brand. We have since taken that content down and sincerely apologize. Good has always stood for making the game of golf more inclusive to all, and we will continue to ensure that is our mission moving forward." Okay, so if it depicted actions that are not aligned with your values as a brand, why did you post it in the first place?
Well, I think the weird thing that came out, somebody posted a longer clip of the whole ad, I guess, and they were doing a horror movie spoof thing where it goes from that, and then you later see somebody else pick up the driver, and I don't know, they act like a horror movie person once they touch the driver. I think that was the theory, is that it's meant to be coming into contact with the driver turns you into this other person. But even that, I'm so why is there first of all, even if that's your ad, like we just got to get more creative. That made no sense to me in general. But two, we just have to be, regardless of what the intent is, any like depiction of a guy pushing a woman to the ground over his golf clubs is like, obviously that's not going to be well received. Like, what are we? It doesn't matter what the intent is. Like, literally, I feel like, you and I have taken like one journalism ethics class, one or two journalism ethics classes, and we could like, and even before that, like, it's just common sense just to look at that and be like, I mean, like, we can't put that out in the world, obviously, but somehow
Right.
a lot more experience than we have let that one slide through.
Yeah, especially a big enough brand like Good, and just you look at how big, for better or for worse, YouTube golf is here to stay. It has become quite big, and a lot of people are watching. A lot of people are using that as sort of a stepping stone to either get into the PGA Tour, obviously, and that creates a whole nother can of worms because the PGA Tour had to ultimately make a statement of their own on this ad because Good is sponsoring a tournament in the FedEx Cup Fall. But
Well, and
yeah,
sponsoring
this is
the whole Big Break show. Like, it's like the
right.
Big Break that starts like this week, maybe like tomorrow. I think it might start. Like the
So
Good is being
this is
branded not just on YouTube. It's a PGA Tour enterprise thing now.
right. This is a huge brand, and so it's like I don't understand why nobody saw a they probably just if this was maybe two guys like completely different context of the ad, maybe that would have landed a bit better. It would have been funnier. I don't know. I'm not in marketing, but just the fact that it was a man pushing and like shoving away pretty violently too. Like that was, I'm not trying to be dramatic when I say that was a pretty solid shove. And so I don't understand how nobody saw that and not even one single person. Like I've made Instagram posts or X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, where if I'm making a post, I try to imagine everything. You guys have even seen this. I've tried to imagine every single thing that could
Nick
possibly
is our PC screener. He's like,
and I
even
hate
things
it.
that I don't consider. Yeah, like
I hate doing
if
it.
anything. Yeah,
Right.
but somebody
I'm the
needs to.
first
It's
one to
important.
say, yeah, I'm the first one to say that I hate doing it. But you have to just look and you have to try and basically anticipate how people are going to get offended by something you post, even if you don't think it's not going to be that offensive. And so I don't understand how not a single person saw a man violently shoving a woman to the ground and didn't raise any eyebrows whatsoever.
Yeah, there's not much to add. It's just crazy that made it out into the world. And I think, if you go watch the longer version of it, which I forget honestly where I saw it somewhere on Twitter, I'm sure you can find it without much difficulty. It's not like, I wish it was a lot better. It's not. It's just like not particularly funny in my opinion, and still features the same thing. But with that, I don't want to give too much airtime to Good after all that. I mean, I'm sure their name will be all over the news with this Big Break, with their PGA Tour sponsorship for their event coming up this fall. They've got a lot going on. They got to figure that out. Maybe revamp the marketing department. I don't know, but
Clean house.
anyways, there was bigger fish to fry in the news world this week, and that includes just more. We might almost be done. I was going to say we never stop coming out with LIV news, but it seems like maybe for once we actually are towards the end here. This might actually be the final straw. I don't know, but LIV Golf Indianapolis came and went, and yeah, I mean, with it was obviously we had the official cancellation of the Michigan Team Championships was it last week? I guess that happened. But now there's it started with was it Tyrrell Hatton who came out to I want to break free,
legendary,
and was bragging about it, and and there's speculation regarding John Rahm. Obviously Bryson DeChambeau. I think I've got this up here. I have the wrong thing up, but let's see. There it is. Bryson DeChambeau posting on Twitter. It was a good run, which, by the way, this has gotten a ton of run, pun intended. But this is just like he's just playing the game, like he's just trying to get as much attention. Like it doesn't matter. I think Monday Q, Ryan French, Monday Q on Twitter put it pretty well. He was like, this actually, if anything, makes me think that LIV is going to continue, because this is not the way that Bryson would go down if he was going down for real.
Yeah.
But it's it's cryptic posting on Instagram and trying to get as many eyeballs on your Instagram as you can. But yeah, I mean, obviously Alan Shipnuck came out with a really well done and longer form piece this morning. What were your kind of reactions to the news? But also, it was nice to see Alan like piece it all together to one thing. I feel like I've been so scatterbrained with this LIV news over the past 5 months now, or whatever it's been, that like to have it all condensed into like a timeline from kind of mid 2025 through where we are now was very helpful for me. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, there's a circle of trust when it comes to LIV media, and I'm not gonna say LIV media, but like media writing about LIV rather. There's a circle of trust of people that if they're gonna open their mouth about this, that it's just gonna be straight up bars, and that's Brandel Chambly and Alan Shipnuck are two of probably some of the best when it comes to LIV commentary, and yeah, I thought it was really interesting just to see how everything was pieced together. Just seeing how Piff pulled out basically and straight up told Scott O'Neill, I think the exact words were "shut it down," and just seeing how that came to be. Obviously, we saw reports. I don't know how substantial these were, but we saw reports that Sergio Garcia damaging the tee box at the Masters was enough to convince Yasser to pull out. Again, don't know how accurate that was, but just seeing how everything has sort of come and gone, and just seeing this optimism from Scott O'Neill, and like I think we had talked about this. Like our last episode was right before he did his press conference, and we knew that like they're gonna ask him, but like there's not gonna be anything of substance, anything news related, and this is kind of like the antithesis of a Scott O'Neill press conference. I'll read you this exact quote because I think this just needs to be said. "I remember last year in the Pro-Am, one of the members brought me a homemade chocolate chip cookie, and we got to interact with several members this morning, which was just wonderful. When you take this sort of production, which is a very large-scale production, and drop it into somebody's community, it could be a little disruptive, or it could be a lot of fun."
That answers all the questions you had about LIV status, right? That covered it all.
We don't have championship rings. We don't have signs. We don't have broadcast equipment. We don't even have an investor for the following year officially, but we have homemade chocolate chip cookies. Yeah,
it was once again a pretty substantial nothing burger, but I mean, it really does seem like we're kind of near the end of this one now. I feel like we can call it. I'm willing. I mean, again, I stand by what I've said, that I think the LIV by title will not go away. I think there will be some whatever. I mean, even in Alan Shipnuck's piece, and maybe I had just missed some of this, but there was more detail on the BC Partners investment than I had initially realized. I think he mentioned that they actually, a representative from BC Partners, I forget what the person's role was exactly at the company, but came and basically pitched LIV golf players on BC Partners' vision for the tour, that kind of thing. I didn't know that personally. That was more involved than I had thought. But again, he also was careful to mention that we have no idea if any of this is contingent on Rahm and Bryson being there, if it relies on, like, there's all sorts of steps that, again, this exists right now as a term sheet, as a signed term sheet, but that is by no means that does not mean that we are going to have LIV as we know it now next year, right? Like that, it's very complicated and could involve lots of different stipulations, whatever. But it does look like there's going to be substantial changes in the players on it. Like, I think that's without, and also we saw DP World Tour reinstate the penalties, like we talked about last week. I think we mentioned that, but DP World Tour is reinstating all the fines that players will have to undergo if they want to play across DP World Tour and LIV Golf. So again, like next year, we already have a handful of people jumping ship to DP World Tour. It sounds like we have a lot more people that are kind of quote unquote undecided, but barring guaranteed significant investment, I don't see that a lot of those people staying and not jumping ship. And again, like John Rahm is owed in the hundreds of millions of dollars reportedly from his contract. Bryson DeChambeau has really, like, if they're not going to be able to pay him a ton of money, like he has no reason to stay with them. Like, he really doesn't. Like, he can make a ton of money doing God knows whatever he wants, whether that be PGA Tour or not. And there are reports, theoretically. I mean, there's been reports that every single player wants to come back to the PGA Tour, so you can kind of take it all with a grain of salt. But I don't know. We're coming to the end of the road for like this iteration of LIV. Absolutely no question. I think we can pretty much determine that now. I see no world in which any rational investor, and as much as these investors are, you might look at it and say, why would you throw money at LIV? Like, these are people that are now without PIF. Like, we're not sinking money into LIV. They're looking for positive investment. And that's frankly just, I find that hard to believe that that's going to come. And the people who are making those investments are a lot smarter than me. So I think we're at the end of the road.
Yeah. And I think, you mentioned that meeting with the BC partners pitching to LIV Golf. It doesn't sound like that pitch meeting went very well, if I'm being honest.
No, that's what I was saying. It sounded like a lot of people came from it, like what Alan Shipnuck said, right? And you can correct me, Nick, is that a lot of the players left it. Like, he was like, there's a couple players who are gung-ho on it and like are committed to LIV, but he said most of the players left it at best like tentative, which is not that promising.
And you look at the response from all of these players. Like, I think they talked to Ian Poulter, who said he's undecided on whether he's even going to come back to LIV next year. Maybe he'll take some time off. Maybe he'll come back. Who knows? Terrell Hatton was more preoccupied with getting on his flight than celebrating the team championship. And when asked about the future, all John Rahm was looking forward to was getting back home to his pregnant wife and
his haircut.
His haircut. Yes, his upcoming haircut, which
exciting.
As a guy who's been overdue for a haircut before, I understand the anticipation towards a haircut, but I don't think that was the answer the reporter was looking for. And it really seems like, and the Bryson post as well from today, I thought was just really strange, because that was not a end of the year photo dump, because that was pictures from the entirety of his LIV career. And so I understand that this is Bryson we're talking about. He's probably just trying to stir up some shit, but this is, that was really weird. It really, even, he talked about, he was asked multiple times throughout the week about his confidence. First off, he was doing some really weird things. He was kicking people off the range. I believe he called Alan Shipnuck a PGA Tour shill.
Yep. Ryan French got booted off the range by Bryson and his team as well. They requested that he leave when he was just doing reporter work, like taking videos.
Which apparently they had a conversation, which Ryan French was asked to keep behind closed doors. So we don't know the details of that, but it's just weird. And like Bryson was even saying, like, yeah, we have a real uphill climb. There's a lot working against us. We have a lot of work to do. It doesn't sound like, Bryson has been the one that has been sort of like the only person that may be more delusionally confident than Scott O'Neill. And so even that was showing cracks this week. And there was a lot that, maybe there wasn't as much optimism as you would expect from someone like Bryson. I didn't leave this weekend thinking that, granted, I didn't have much confidence to begin with, but I did not leave this week thinking that there was confidence for the future, that this could, maintain what it sort of was, or even just a fraction of that. You look at the purse sizes. I think, what was the purse, like 10 million this week? It's just 25, or it was 25 at the BMW. Like the one thing that LIV had on the PGA Tour was that you could wear shorts and there was going to be way more money. And, we're sitting here 5 years after the league, and, now all they have is shorts.
Well, that's the other part of the Alan Shipnuck article that was mentioned, is that it seems like there are events lined up for next year, which is important to mention. Like I said, I do think LIV is going to exist in some gross way. And it seems like they're doing more international stuff, which is, if LIV has done anything really good, it has been bringing golf to areas that really were starved for it. And I think Alan Shipnuck put that out well, like South Africa, Australia, to mention a few. Obviously, those have all drawn like massive crowds pretty consistently. And I believe the purses were cited in Alan Shipnuck's article is like $6 to $10 million, which again is like essentially worse than PGA Tour events at this point. So, the appeal is lost. Like to try to put a bow on it and do this neatly is like, I think LIV will continue to exist. The Bryson's post doesn't really mean a ton to me, but literally every sign in what I've seen, all of that points to Jon Rahm and Bryson not being sustainable investments for LIV because of how much money they'd have to put into it. And without those two, I think LIV is pretty much nothing, which is probably what we're headed for.
And you look at the one thing that Brian Rolapp has been able to do that has been just very impressive is his ability to combat LIV and just hit him where it hurts. You look at, he immediately unveiled the returning member program, which was the first, probably the biggest nail in the coffin to LIV because it exposed that people are willing to leave in the first place. They opened up their media rights agreements with the players, allowing more flexibility there to maybe give some more leeway to someone like Bryson that could make it a little bit more desirable for him to come back. Then, what they've been doing for the last 5 years with signature events, with the championship series now, they raised purses. They found so much more money into the PGA Tour and purse sizes. And to now they're finally outselling LIV when it comes to purse sizes and overall player checks. They partnered with the Asian Tour, which was LIV's feeder tour. That was a big one that, basically swept the rug out from under LIV because, that was one of the reports that we heard that the international series, which was co-sanctioned by the Asian Tour, was a big selling point that Scott O'Neill was using for investors. And then we finally have, I've been critical of LIV over the years, and the one thing that I was able to give its flowers to was the international series and hitting places like Australia, South Africa. Seeing, Anthony Kim in South Africa this year was incredible. There's some great stories throughout, like little snippets of great stories throughout LIV. And that was the one thing that they've done really well, was growing the game on an international level and bringing LIV to audiences that don't necessarily get golf on the regular. And, the latest blow from the PGA Tour, according to a report came out from the Telegraph this morning, that the PGA Tour and DP World Tour are working on a fall global series that could launch as soon as 2028 and see up to 9 events in locations such as England, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, France, Spain, Italy, Australia, and South Africa. Those last two are the keys. As I mentioned, those are probably the 2 most iconic LIV events that they've had in the history of the league. And so for the PGA Tour, Brian Rolapp has talked about replacing the FedEx Cup fall maybe with an international series. And so this could be, we'll find out tomorrow at his press conference, perchance, but this is probably what he was referring to with that international series. And that's, there is officially nothing that LIV does that is exclusive to LIV anymore, aside from the shorts. I'm just gonna keep hammering the shorts. Well, it's been 5 years. It still bothers me, but there's nothing that everything that LIV does, the PGA Tour does now. They've responded, and LIV doesn't have the hill to stand on anymore.
No, I think we covered it. I don't have anything to add really there. I think it's, like I said, wraps. We're near the end here. It's just gonna all that where I'm really waiting on is like legitimate reporting on what's going on with Bryson and Rahm, what the next steps are for them. But beyond that, I don't think there's a ton more to wait on.
Yeah, because once we get the first defection, the floodgates are open and they're going to drop like flies. I'm looking forward to that first report of either Jon Rahm or Tyrrell Hatton or somebody just trying to break free, as Tyrrell Hatton so desperately wants to break free. But yeah, the only other thing that I have from this weekend is that Michael Lasasso won, which is probably the last Michael Lasasso will forever now be in bar trivia nights now of who was the last winner of LIV, more than likely.
It was also fun. To be honest, if LIV had to go out, this was a great way for it to go out. John, I think, again, read Alan Shipnuck's piece. He's going to explain it a lot better than we are because he was on the ground there. But Bryson DeChambeau and Jon Rahm kind of battling alongside Michael Lasasso, who manages to hold on on Sunday with a 5 under par round, makes birdie on the last hole to take that individual championship. His first win on LIV or generally professionally. Obviously, again, Lasasso made headlines when he defected to LIV from as the NCAA reigning individual champion, and thus like forfeiting his Masters berth, which is nuts. But I mean, he made a bunch of money for it, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, again, so many people have been reported as planning to defect, essentially. But I believe Lasasso was one of the ones that definitively mentioned that he was going to be targeting DP World Tour starts, if I remember correctly, as a route to get back to the PGA Tour. So, and look, he had like a entertaining interview afterward. He seems like a good dude. His swing, I don't understand how it works. It's insane to me, like how low he gets to the ground before he starts his downswing. I don't understand how that could possibly lead to a square club face, but obviously he's doing a lot better than I am in the world of golf. So yeah, I can't lie to you, I didn't watch this event, but I saw a couple highlights this morning and watched Michael Lasasso's interview, and he seems great. I have no problems with Michael Lasasso as an individual, and I hope he can find his way back to the PGA Tour and be successful, because he's, like, as we've talked about so much this year, young talent. He's another piece of young talent that I'm not going to pretend like I believe he's a young talent on the level of Jackson Coyven or anything like that, but if he comes back and manages to find his footing, it's like yet another name in that 20 to 25-year-old age range that can challenge for PGA Tour titles, and that's what we want. So
yeah, exactly. We've said before that Michael Lasasso might be the one player that has mismanaged the whole situation, the whole LIV situation, the worst. He joined LIV after Brooks Koepka defected, which, if you were joining after that, like, what are you doing, man? He gave up his invitation for the Masters, like you said, and it's like, you don't have any guarantees of playing in there ever again. Like, that's just a psychotic decision. And then, he specifically stated that he joined LIV to play on the high flyers and to have the mentorship of Phil Mickelson, who's been persona non grata MIA for a while. And so everything he left, up until this past weekend, it's been a really rough start to his professional career. And so now he at least has the win to show for it. He has some momentum to take into Q School, and we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I'm really hoping that things can turn around and he does not get dragged down by the ship, because he is a very talented player, and I'm really hoping he could try to fix his career in a sense.
With that, I think we should move to the BMW. That's enough.
I think it's enough.
LIV.
Yeah,
it's time. We can move to the BMW, where Wyndham Clark got his third win. And I want to start this off with the main reaction that I feel like people have had to this win, over the last 24 hours, I guess, whatever it would be. Is Wyndham Clark your player of the year? Are you still sticking with Scotty? I mean, we went over this, was it 2 weeks ago when we did our individual, we picked our players of the year and everything. We were between, mostly at that point, Scotty. I know Kyle picked Rory for his peak winning the Masters, and Cam Young. I feel like those were kind of the three that we debated. And we did say, Wyndham, we gave him a shout. I don't think any of us picked him, but we mentioned that it was, a relevant conversation, considering he won the U.S. Open and won prior to that as well. He's won twice on the PGA Tour, now 3 times. Since we had that conversation, obviously, he has won the BMW Championship, his third win of the year. Now he's got the BMW, the U.S. Open, and I am completely blanking on what event he won prior.
The CJ Cup.
Those two. It was the CJ Cup. Byron Nelson. How dare I? Is he your player of the year, or are we sticking with Scotty?
This is where it gets hairy, and I think I had said initially that Scotty would be my player of the year, unless, I think I even said this as recent as last week too, that Scotty would be my player of the year unless one of Matt Fitzpatrick, Chris Gotterup, Cam Young, or Wyndham Clark won the FedEx Cup at the Tour Championship. That might change now. I think with Wyndham winning, he now joins Matt Fitzpatrick and Chris Gotterup as the third player this year to reach 3 PGA Tour wins. And you look at,
and one of them's a major.
One of
Like
one of them is a major. So
of
you
those
can,
with 3 wins, he's got the best resume. Of the 3 wins, he's got the best ones.
right. So you can combine basically all of our arguments from last week of saying, consistent play. He's been obviously he had a very rough start to the year, but ever since probably the CJ Cup, he's been pretty steady ever, save for I believe it was a missed cut at the PGA Championship.
Yeah, two missed
But
cuts at the Open and the Rocket
and
Classic.
the,
He
okay,
also
and the
he
Open.
missed the cut at the PGA, but since the CJ Cup, those are the 2 missed cuts.
Okay. So yeah, been relatively steady golf, has his 3 wins. So he has the steady consistency that we liked Scotty for. He has the major that, if we were talking about peaks with Rory, like he has the major that, would make him desirable in that factor as well. And then, you have just the fact that he won a playoff event too. So you look at his 3 wins. You mentioned, just strength of the wins. Obviously, the CJ Cup is, but he had Scotty in the field and he outdueled Scotty in the final round. So like that gets a bit more credibility in my eyes. And then, you have outdueling Scotty at the Open and outdueling Scotty at, so I guess Scotty didn't really factor into the BMW. We'll get to that in a second, but he outdueled him there as well. And they outdueled Rory as well. And so, yeah, I'd say just in terms of like overall, like if he finishes, not even wins, I think if he finishes higher than Scotty, that does it for me at East Lake.
Yeah, I think so. It was funny actually. This morning, I kind of sat down because yesterday I had been pretty not hard headed. I'd been pretty confident in my Wyndham Clark is now the Player of the Year decision. Like I felt pretty good about that, just like on reaction after he won the BMW Championship. And again, he also finished T5 at the FedEx St. Jude, so he's playing really good golf right now. And I kind of sat down this morning to write like a why is this even a conversation type of article. Like we're going about this all wrong if we're debating this because Wyndham Clark is so clearly the Player of the Year. And then I started writing it, and then I was like, I don't know if I believe what I'm writing. Like, I realized that I wasn't quite as confident as I thought. He's still my Player of the Year. I will say, like to answer the question that I asked quickly, would be a yes, I would vote Wyndham Clark right now, but it is like closer than I would have thought. Because it's a weird season for him. I think like I still think it's him. I think the US Open takes it over the top. Like Scotty winning the Amex means very like I feel okay, Amex and CJ Cup, Byron Nelson, I feel like we can count those as the same.
Yeah, those cancel
FedEx
out.
St. Jude Championship and BMW Championship, we can count those as the same. That's fine. So that's already those are the wins knocked out. So then we're just saying, okay, outside of that, Wyndham's got 1, 2, 3 top fives plus a win at the US Open. And Scotty's got 5 second place finishes and a handful of other top fives. It's like, what do we weigh more? To me, I'm going to take that US Open win a million times out of a million, which I think is what pushes him over the top. But again, it really just depends on what we're going to weigh here because the consistency was not there, right? Like I know he had these stretches that were really great, like CJ Cup. It's kind of been since the Texas Children's Houston Open, he has either finished inside the top 21, and that includes the 3 wins, a handful of top fives, or he's missed the cut. And 2 of those missed cuts were at majors, PGA Championship, Open Championship, Rocket Classic. Before the Masters tournament at the Texas Children's Houston Open going backwards, he was T13 once, otherwise did not finish inside the top 30. It's just been a weird year. So I get the argument for Scotty because of consistency. Like, because if you just look at Scotty's page, it's all green. It's obviously that one missed cut at the Genesis that made a ridiculous amount of headlines. And then he has that FedEx St. Jude Championship win. He's got the Amex win to open his season. Really, like, obviously that kind of painted a good picture, right? Bookending it with wins and just filling up the middle of the top fives pretty much is what his season's been. But a major win, I just feel like we have to prioritize that to me. And I think, again, this would be Scotty's 5th in a row Player of the Year. Which is nuts. I think I was looking at it since the Player of the Year was conceived in 1990 was the first time they voted on it. I believe Tiger won 5 in a row from 99 through 2004. He also won in 97. He also won in 2007. I think he might have won in 2006 as well. Like he's got 9 Player of the Years, whatever. But Scotty would be the only player since Tiger to win 5 in a row. And that is not playing into my vote at all. Not that I have an actual vote, but if I had a vote, it would go to Wyndham because we've got the U.S. Open Championship. I don't know. It's also just maybe it's like some of this is probably biased towards the back end of the year because he's been so hot in the last 3 months. And obviously, like we said, that first, whatever that is, 2.5 months was pretty rough. But also, that's kind of how it should be. Like, in my opinion, I don't know. Like, he played the U.S. Open, really. Like, he won the U.S. Open, and he's playing the playoff events, which, again, if we live in a world where the playoff events matter, and we want to say signature events and higher purses matter, he's been T5 and won at the 2 playoff events, and he won a major championship. To me, it has to be Wyndham. But I when I was writing out that article this morning, I was like, I could understand. Like, if it's just what you value. If you value consistency, I can understand you giving it to Scotty, even though the wins aren't there. But for me, it's got to be Wyndham.
Yeah, I think, and it's weird in the sense that not only has he personally had a weird year, it's also just been a weird year. Like, if you were to drop us in July, Matt Fitzpatrick would have been the consensus player of the year. And you look at now, like I have a rant about this, but he's just kind of completely faded from that conversation whatsoever.
I feel like you've had a rant every time we've talked about player of the year that Matt Fitzpatrick's come up. There's been a Matt Fitzpatrick rant.
Well, guilty, but
okay.
And so he's been out. Chris Gotterup, you just look at the strength of his wins. There's an argument there. Cam Young also hasn't taken that step forward that we thought he was going to in, say, May or June. And so it really comes down, and then Rory's just been MIA. Even he flat out said, I have not played enough to be considered player of the year. And so it really comes down to Scotty and Wyndham. And to me, I think, yes, there is, if you want to look at statistical, like who the best stats player of the year is, like it's 100% Scotty. He's got scoring average. He has,
he's the best player. He's the best golfer.
He is the best player on the PGA Tour right now. But the best player in the PGA Tour has finished second 5 times. And so if you're not first, you're last. Is kind of the way I'm looking at this. And he may be the best statistical player, but when it mattered most, and like that wasn't even just like finishing second. There was some tournaments that, you look at Harbor Town, you look at the Travelers, you look at the Masters. Those weren't only second place finishes. Those were missed opportunities. And to me,
like a lot of his seconds have either been that or they've been like not non-competitive seconds, but like what we had at the beginning there, where he shot himself out of the round on the tournament on Thursday, then had to like fight like hell to get back into the top 5, even if it wasn't second place. And like, comes in with a 65 on Sunday and his name pops up on the leaderboard and he's vaguely a threat just because he's Scotty Scheffler. But if it was anybody else's name, we would have never thought that he had a chance to win, right? Like, so it's, those top 5s to me, like it's like you're saying, they're not the world's most impressive seconds and top 5s that we're talking about here.
Exactly. And so to me, that was, yes, he missed the. Where did Wyndham finish at the Masters?
Masters, he was T21.
Okay,
so T21, a win and 2 missed cuts.
Okay, so respectable finish at the Masters, while Scotty was finishing runner-up, and then just a complete non-factor in the other the 2 majors rather, but has the 1 major win, which Scotty does not have in 2026. So to me, the second place finishes are meant to be this mark of consistency, this supporting factor for Scotty. I think it weakens his case, if I'm being honest. Like, to me, that's just continued evidence that when the spotlight came on him, he did not deliver on many occasions this year. And to me, I think that's more of a knock on his season than it is a benefit.
Yeah, I think it should be Wyndham. I think the best case scenario for me here is we have either Cam Young or Chris Gotterup win the Tour Championship, because then we've got a 3-way race. Then it's like very legitimate. If Chris Gotterup wins the Tour Championship, I think you could hand it to him because he's got the 4 wins. Then he doesn't have the major. So then Wyndham, I think, and Cam Young, the same conversation. He wins the Players and the Tour Championship plus the Cadillac Championship. Like, we'd be able to have or did he win the Truist or the Cadillac? Those 2 are the same. It was the Cadillac. Truist was Christopher Hayden.
Yeah.
But
that one just kind of fades from memory. But
yeah, seriously. But that would be awesome. I mean, it would be that I would love Cam Young or Chris Gotterup to take the win this weekend so that we can get to we can have a real conversation here. Because otherwise, I think it should be Wyndham. Although, if they vote Scotty, like there's also just the name brand. It's Scotty Scheffler, and I think that's part of
Right.
it is that we're going to get voter. We're going to get. I mean, I don't even know exactly how this works, but we're going to get a lot of players who are people who just kind of look at the bill and see Scotty Scheffler, and not to mention like it's not even Scotty Scheffler versus just somebody. It's Scotty Scheffler versus Wyndham, who for better or worse has had moments on the PGA Tour that have caused him to have a lot of people that are not his biggest fans. I like him as a golfer personally, but I can understand, obviously what he did at Oakmont was ridiculous, and the kind of the lack of apology and accountability there for a really long time was worse. So it's tough with just like if you're just looking at two names and you're like, man, Scotty Scheffler versus Wyndham Clark, like there's going to be, I mean, all of our eyes would stray towards Scotty Scheffler initially, but I think resume wise, it's Wyndham. But we should, in terms of the BMW Championship, give him a lot of credit because he came into this final round with a 5-stroke lead over Patrick Cantlay and Rory McIlroy. Does not get off to a good start in this final round. He ends up shooting a 70, but I believe he birdied the last 3 holes to do that. At one point, he was 3 over on the day. He actually was he in a tie for the lead with Rory at one point, I believe, at 14 under. And then Rory kind of floundered down the stretch, bogey to par 5, which is like, man, what are we doing? How does that happen when you're Rory McIlroy on the 17th hole, I believe, on a Sunday? Patrick Cantlay just continues to adore this tournament, like for some weird, I don't know what goes on in his brain when he arrives here, but he loves it. And then Chris Gotterup, like we just talked about with that T4, continues some really, really good play. And I think, like without a doubt, when we do a preview episode for the Tour Championship, I believe tomorrow, Chris Gotterup I will be paying a lot of attention to Chris Gotterup. He just continues to play ridiculous golf and had maybe the closest hole-in-one that wasn't a hole-in-one I've ever seen.
Oh my
in
God,
my life.
yeah,
I don't
that
know
was
it didn't
torture.
drop, like a 200-yard 5-iron or something like that. I think it was longer, and it just lands 3 feet short of the hole, takes one hop, and just somehow sticks with half the ball leaning over the edge. It just didn't drop, but that was a lot of names of all the one thing we should mention about Scotty Scheffler: hand, foot, and mouth disease, dude. Gross. Don't play golf.
I have like, yeah, even like if I was a reporter and I found out on Sunday that Scotty Scheffler had hand, foot, and mouth and he was doing pressers and talking like the entire
put
week,
your
like
mask on, back up.
yeah, that's kind of nasty. I would not be happy if I was in St. Louis. But I think that I'm glad you brought that up because I think that brings us to a bit larger of a point. And finding out on Sunday that Scotty Scheffler had hand, foot, and mouth disease, and that's why he was not playing as great. We are so overdue for an injury report on the PGA Tour.
I agree, but I think it's necessary to figure out why we need an injury report because I don't like. I saw somebody respond to this. Like it makes sense. Every sport does it, but like, do you want to cater to like betting that much? Because I feel like that's what it's for.
I want to nuke betting. I want to like ship it off to the moon and just blow it up. I want betting as far away from the sport as you possibly can. But
like
we also
for us
have
as journalists. Obviously.
Yeah, for us as journalists, yeah, I completely understand the need for transparency. These guys are independent contractors, but if you're gonna every week post your power rankings, your DraftKings sponsored leaderboards, and have your bet rankings have the live odds on your leaderboards on your website, you need to disclose this information because how many people saw Scotty Scheffler run away with the St. Jude last week and then put a bunch of money on him only to find out that he was in pain just gripping the club because he had blisters on his hands.
I think the difference, and obviously the argument will come, it's like, well, every other sport does it. I just made that argument, right? Baseball does it, football does it, basketball does it, everybody does it. I think what's different with golf is that a player like Scotty having hand, foot, and mouth disease does not in any way affect the strategy of the other golfers. Like that's why you have to do an injury report outside of betting, right? Like let's take betting out of the conversation. The reason a football team has to say our starting safety has a pulled hamstring, will be out on Sunday, and they can, even with that, they'll mess with it and kind of, try to keep things under wraps as long as they can. But whatever, that might change the other team's game plan on where they want to attack. They might want to start attacking deeper. They might want to get crossers over the middle where there's a backup safety in or something like that. And that just doesn't matter in golf, which is why we don't have them. But I agree with you that like I'm kind of on the same page, and I'm not like I think betting is a bad thing, but I also do it occasionally, so I can't like stand that firm on that take. But I will say that like the tour is like the PGA Tour is so aggressively like, and all sports leagues are. This is not at the detriment. I'm not trying to like diss the PGA Tour specifically. Sports in general, major sports leagues are in bed with like DraftKings and FanDuel like to the nth degree, right? Like they're working together, and that's not meant to be like they're colluding. I just mean they're working together, and they're like, as you said, there are specific betting broadcasts. Yeah, exactly, and they're trying to make as much money as they can out of these partnerships, which is fine. And if you're going to do that, though, then yes, I think if you're going to be as intertwined with sports betting as the PGA Tour and as golf has become, like, yeah, you probably need to do some sort of injury report type thing. But the other thing, like, then you're going to be relying on players to self-report, and like that, like this, like who's actually making Scotty Scheffler disclose that he has hand, foot, and mouth disease on Tuesday of this week, right? Like, it's like, how do you mandate that for 140 players? I guess this week it's 750 players,
right?
But
and it's not, it's not a league. It's a bunch of independent contractors playing in an event. So I don't necessarily. They're under no obligation to disclose any of that information, and I completely understand that. But yeah, as I said, under any normal I didn't get bothered by any of this for a very long time. Like, I haven't been pushing for an injury report since I think I might have mentioned it once on this show, but I don't think I've really been pushing that hard for it. But yeah, if you're going to, and I don't sports bet, so like I don't really have a dog in this fight either. But if you're gonna have a full-on separate broadcast of a bet cast on ESPN Plus when you're doing your PGA Tour Live, don't you think it's relevant info that your world number one and betting leader is not at 100% this week?
Yeah, I mean, it's also just that, you want like the tour and their partnerships obviously want as many people to be betting as they can fathom, as they can have, and to do that, you need to encourage people to bet, and some of that involves transparency. So it's there's lots of reasons, but yes, I think it is probably an inevitability at this point. What it looks like, I can't imagine it's going to look exactly like what we see with the leagues that we've mentioned: MLB, NBA, NFL, NHL, whatever you want to, all of them, team sports in general. I can't imagine
it like an injured, like a disabled list or anything like that. But
exactly, because it is going to be a self-report thing. But there will, I'm sure, be some sort of some way to account for that in the coming days. But in terms of the golf, Nick, any of those big names? I mean, we saw the Rory turnaround. That was a big headline after how horrific it was last week. I think we said on the pod last week, look, he's probably just going to go win, right? It doesn't actually matter that he played bad. This was basically him practicing. I think we said he hadn't picked up a club in 3 weeks, right?
Right.
Before showing up there on Tuesday or whatever it was. And so that was just his warm-up, and now he steps out and remembers how to play golf and almost wins a tournament.
I'm inclined to pick him for the Tour Championship just for that reason alone. But
yeah, I mean, again, like, one thing we know about Rory, and we can, disparage him as much as we might want because he doesn't play as much, or because he's, flip-flop positioning on his role on the PGA Tour, whatever. You can say all sorts of stuff about Rory. One thing you cannot argue is that when he's playing good golf, there is at most like 2 people in the world that can beat him on any given week. One of them is named Scotty Scheffler, but one of them is not Scotty Scheffler X hand, foot, and mouth disease. So,
right. And that's where, like, yeah, I've made my frustrations known about, the flip-flopping of opinions and like the hypocritical nature at times. But the main reason why I get so frustrated watching Rory McIlroy make the decisions he makes is precisely because of this weekend, because he can take 3 weeks of not touching a club, have one warm-up week, and then just look absolutely dominant. He is so good at golf. Like, I want to watch him play because he is so good at golf. And to be able, like, there's not many people that could do what he did this past weekend at the BMW. And like, it's just that much more impressive. And yeah, I think he even said it himself. Like, there was some maybe mental lapses. Like, if he was a bit more seasoned, he probably would not have laid up into a bunker. Not to say that he tried to lay up into it. That was
on that par 5 17th that I was talking about earlier.
Right. But, he would have maybe pulled a different club, maybe would have played a different yardage. That's just the quality of not playing. He did say, like, he can't be mad at himself because he hasn't played enough to be mad at himself. So it's definitely just like he needs more reps. Given the nature of his schedule, those reps aren't going to come. But, it's really interesting to see just how he even mentioned he was, working with different swings. He's kind of trying to like reinvent something. He's been using putter grips a la Bryson DeChambeau on a lot of his clubs on the range, which, like, how the comparisons to the two have not been made for that, like, that's a tragedy. But yeah, he's that if I have one takeaway, or if I have two takeaways from this week, is Wyndham Clark is good at golf, Rory McIlroy is great at golf.
Yeah, and we're not previewing the Tour Championship today. That'll be tomorrow. But he has won this thing 3 times, so and a handful of other top 5s. And you can weigh things way differently. There's only 30 players in the field. Like I said, Tommy Fleetwood's win doesn't count, but you got to win it.
Unless you're doing
one real tournament.
Points. Then it's a major.
True. Then it's a major, but otherwise, no. Yeah. Look, another player that stood out to me was Colin Morikawa, purely because he did fine. He finished T4, 12 under, 5 shots back. Again, Wyndham kind of ran away with it in the end. But he had an interesting comment. I wish I had it pulled up. I am sure I could find it pretty quickly. But it was something along
I'll find it for you.
I believe it was beware of the injured golfer or something like that. Basically, it was interesting. He was talking about how he, as someone who is injured, as someone who was, obviously he strained his back a while ago earlier in the season. And maybe I'm misinterpreting what he said, but what I took from that was kind of the idea that when you don't have the game that you're used to having, you kind of have to find different ways to succeed. You have to find different ways to get the wins. And theoretically, as you get healthier, that can make you stronger, right? Like if you have to adapt and find new ways to win outside of your typical golf game, and maybe that involves playing a better mental game, like we talked about with Rory. Maybe that involves, a different strategy off the tee on some holes, stuff like that. And you find some things that start to work for you. If you can then get healthy again and combine that with your game, that's pretty exciting. So I will say, I'm not, again, he's still rehabbing stuff. I don't think Colin Morikawa is fully healthy. Even despite a T4, he's had some great finishes this year while not being fully healthy. But looking towards 2027, very, very early take, but I'm really excited to see what Colin Morikawa can do.
I was definitely going to say that. Yeah,
and he's still the youngest existing major champion, and will be when he turns 30 in February maybe. But when the Masters rolls around, but I'm really excited to see what I'm hoping he can put it together for a longer stretch next year, because just watching him at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am this year, we talked about it in the recap show of that tournament. And I think I picked him. Definitely, I know I picked him the week he got injured and strained his back on the second hole swinging a driver with no ball on the ground. But I know I was really excited about the prospect of Colin Morikawa being like capital B back and just being a force on the tour again. So if we can get there, that would be great. In the meantime, Chris Goddard, like we said, awesome. Robert McIntyre, great bounce back after a WD last week, right? Didn't he?
Yeah. Which it was a knee injury. It wasn't a rage.
Yes. And did you see what he said too about this whole week, every night he watched a inspiring sports movie?
I did see that, yeah.
And it helped that, he came out with this 68, 69, 68, 65 steady golf, finishes T7 kind of out of nowhere after whatever was an 83 and a WD last week. Again, like you said, not a healthy Robert McIntyre, but he's been struggling a little bit recently even before that, I guess it was just the T28, the Open, that was particularly bad. He obviously played well at the Scottish, as he always does. But yeah, any other names here before we switch over to LPGA that you want to make sure to give a shout out or a negative shout out? I don't know.
I do have two. First off, it's not more. I guess this is more of just like a overarching thing. You had mentioned that you had starting to really like Wyndham Clark as a golfer. This might be a hot take. I'm really starting to like him as a person.
I think so too. I was gonna say that and I thought I might catch flack for it, to be honest. But I think like it's hard to like I know he's kind of started to be accountable, and I think it's tough because he's been very, very open about the struggles he has with anger management, but also just mental health in general. And that's important. And I really appreciate him for that. That doesn't then, excuse what he did at Oakmont. I think, honestly, what I struggled with more, like I said, was the fact that he didn't like seem to be holding himself accountable for what happened at Oakmont for a really long time. There wasn't like an immediate apology beyond just being like, yeah, sorry that happened, guys. I don't know. But this year he's grown on me a lot for sure. And it seems like he's kind of got that mental state back to where it was when we saw that, the Full Swing episode with him. And I believe Julie Elion is his golf psychologist. It feels like he's gotten his mental game back there, I hope. And when he's like that, I do seem to like him as a person. Obviously, the storyline's been he's moving in with his fiance now. Are they engaged now? I believe, right?
I think so.
She's moving to Arizona to live with Wyndham, I believe, and life seems to be coming up Wyndham pretty good right now. I'd have to check what the earnings of this year are, but I'm sure he is quite high on the list, if not. Actually, probably not at the top of it, just because again, those second places really stack up for Scotty. But yeah, no, I wouldn't disagree with you.
Right, because I think yes, it did take him a very long time to own up to Oakmont, but at the same time, like he's not apologizing for the player he was, or he is apologizing for, or he's not trying to change your mind on the player he was. He's trying to grow as the player he is now. And so that's to me where like he's not trying to convince you that he was in the right for Oakmont. Yes, it did take him a little while to acknowledge it, but he's not trying to convince anybody that he was in the right there. He acknowledges what happened and he's just kind of trying to focus on the future. I think, I do think that a lot of this is like played up, like even like at the press conference yesterday, everybody's like, oh, did you hear people booing your shots? It's like, can we just stop playing into this? Like, this is not makes a bigger problem than it is.
If he had come out onto the tour this year and we hadn't known who he was and he was just, X guy who was kind of a rando, maybe in his second or third year on tour, and he did what he's done this year and acted the way he's acted, I feel like he'd be a fan favorite, no question. The only thing that's dragging him down, frankly, is his past. So like you're saying, like I like him as a person as he is right now. I obviously I'm never going to like support like beating up the locker room in Oakmont.
Correct. Yeah.
However, I agree with what you're saying. And I did just check the money list. He's in fourth, but it's essentially a tie. It's 20.9 million for Scotty Scheffler. And then it's 14.4 for Cam Young, 14.3 for Matt Fitzpatrick, and 14.2 million for Wyndham Clark. And then another $5 million gap down to Rory McIlroy, or $4.4 million gap. I shouldn't round up like that. That's leading the witness, but $4.4 million gap down to Rory McIlroy, who has played 13 events, 9 events less than Wyndham.
Yeah, which is absurd in and of itself. But you want to talk about whether or not Wyndham is a fan favorite. I'll talk about another fan favorite who did very well this time. That's Gary Woodland. Like we can't take it to the 59th minute and not talk about Gary Woodland. Like that was just a great to come out. I believe he was an 18-hole co-leader, and then was a 36-hole co-leader. Very well, played very well throughout the entire week. Was someone that needed a good finish in order to advance to the Tour Championship. He got that finish, finished T4, will be playing at East Lake for the first time since 2019. A near perfect weekend, except for topping the ball on the ninth hole.
Yeah, like
the
rare,
fuck was
just
that?
like a true top, like a straight up, just straight top.
Into
it
rolled 90 yards into the water too.
Yeah, it's just
which
the
I think
worst
Jim
case
Nance
scenario.
said he's like that was not the water has never been in play on this hole.
Yeah, that was insult to injury. But I think we mentioned him last week when we were doing our bubble watch segment, kind of regarding just like players we think or we hope could. And we both kind of said like I don't really think it'll happen because kind of all Gary Woodland did this year until this week was pretty much just that Texas Children's Houston Open. He's had some other good finishes, but like the 3M Open, he played well at the US Open, but the 3M Open, the Charles Schwab Challenge, it's been there haven't been many Gary sightings at big events, and we kind of flagged that. We were like, I wish it would happen. I don't necessarily have faith that it happened, and look at this, it happened, and that's great. It is very like you said, he was 18-hole leader, one stroke back at Wyndham after 36. But it's just like, I mean, again, if there was anybody you would root for on the PGA Tour, like it's Gary Woodland, obviously. Like you said, speaking of fan favorites, that's the capital T, capital F fan capital F, capital F fan favorite.
Comeback player of the year, we said.
Yeah, exactly. I was looking because on Data Golf it shows you the low rounds of the day for every round in like the little green box or whatever. I was looking at that and I couldn't find it for round 2, so I scrolled down and saw that Victor Hovland went 71, 63, 72, 72. Just sure. Like, oh, why not, man? I don't know what that's about, but he is, I think he's inside in the FedEx Cup, right? He's got no problems getting in, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I should have pulled up the list, but
just, he's I did a little bit. I think he finished 26. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So made it a little hard on himself.
It's just so impressive that Alex Fitz is up there. I can't believe
it really is.
He's in 24th. That's like he's ahead of Victor Hovland, Justin Rose, Adam Scott, and Tom Kim and major champion Ryan Fox.
Which that's insane.
Sure.
You look at some of the names that aren't heading to Eastlake. You have Ricky Fowler, who entered as number 30. He'll be heading home. Aaron Rai is not making it either. Major champion Aaron Rai. You had mentioned that it might have been rare. It's not as rare as you think. I actually went and looked it up. It is not
to have a major
as
champion
rare.
make the tour, not make the tour championship.
Yeah, it's not as rare as you would think. Obviously that number has been skewed a little bit because you have Bryson Brooks and Cam Smith.
This is excluding LIV Golf.
Right. But Phil Mickelson did not make I think he finished. Yeah, he finished in 70th in 2021. Shane Lowry finished 50th in 2019. Tiger also did not make Eastlake
in 2019.
Yeah, he did not. But
that one's more surprising because didn't he get up to like world number 6 or something like that? Am I going crazy?
I think that was after Augusta, and then I think that's when he got I think that was when he won the Zozo in 2021, and then actually it was 2020. It was probably the FedEx Cup fall thingy. Won the
you're
Zozo,
right. Because his 2019, he only played like 12 events. He just happened to win the Masters during that stretch.
Right, which Tiger playing in 12 events is just crazy to even think about in 2026. But so all in all, not as uncommon as you would think for Aaron Rai to not make the Tour Championship, but notable nonetheless. And that brings us, unless you have any other players to mention, that brings me to my Tommy Fleetwood T47.
I was going to give very quick shouts and not talk about them at all to the 3 players that actually played their way inside the bubble. You already mentioned Gary Woodland. Patrick Cantlay was one who, like we said, plays well here every single year for God knows what reason. And then Robert McIntyre, who we also mentioned. I actually didn't realize that he had been on the outside looking in coming into this week, but he moves up from 36th to 25th with that T7 finish to get himself to Eastlake. And obviously Wyndham Clark now moves up to 3rd from 5th. So nothing crazy. But I wanted to give a shout to those 3 guys. We do bubble watch, Nick. We got to watch the bubble.
Yeah, we'll do a more. I guess bubble watch is done. But
it's done. No more.
Until
but I'll let you can do your read now. Let's do that.
We can keep track of Bubba to see if he's defecting to the DP World Tour. We'll definitely bring you comprehensive bubble watch. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, bubble watch is done. Patrick Cantley is not a bad shout next week at East Lake. This is also a course that he likes as well.
He just doesn't win, though. He just doesn't win. Like, he's going to get top 10 probably, but he just doesn't win.
That's true. But without further ado,
he wins for the first time in like 3 years. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Matt Fitzpatrick, like, where you been? What happened?
Like, show once again.
It's you watch him and he'll piece together like a good round. He'll be like 4 under through 11 or something like that. And you look at him and say, oh, he's having a really good round. Maybe he can get into contention this week. And then he'll airmail the green with a wedge, or like put himself in a bunker short-sided and just put himself in a situation that you wouldn't expect a top player to put himself into. And just careless mistakes, like a lot of unforced errors in his game. And yeah, just got steadily worse as the week progressed. So overall, just not
65 on Thursday. I didn't realize that he went that low.
Yeah, exactly. But even then, that was, you have the bogeys on 10 and 16, and it's just mistakes that compound. And you wouldn't expect a player of his caliber, especially the player at the beginning of the year that was just like absolutely dialed. You wouldn't expect those mistakes to come through, and they just keep piling up. So
yeah, he hasn't showed up in a while. It's weird. I mean, 65, 72, 69, 61 finishes T28. That doesn't sound that bad. I know it's the same as his major performances. It's like, oh, he's been top 25 in all of them. It's like, well, but they kind of suck. Yeah, this is grimy. 38 on the back nine. Can't do that. And this is no easy course. Again, like Wyndham doesn't win at some crazy number. He wins at 17. Nobody else breaks 14 under par. But again, like it's just expectations, right? It's like he's probably 3rd or 4th best player in the world still. Maybe Wyndham Clark jumped him this week. I don't know. I know OWGR really values wins, so maybe he did. But yeah, I mean, a 1 over par on Sunday, a 2 over par on Friday. It's just he hasn't had it in a little while, and it's a good thing to give a shout to. It's weird. Both Fitzpatrick brothers didn't have it this week. Maybe they're storing up their energy for the tour.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe Melman, the witch doctor, just couldn't decide which brother. He just kind of gave it a toss. He's like, okay, well, we'll go mediocre for both of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, golf was much more fun when Matt Fitzpatrick is playing well, and yeah, that was a lot of fun at the beginning of the year. And I'm really hoping that wasn't just like a flash in the pan, and he can be that consistent top player. But
well, look, I mean, he's won the U.S. Open, right? Like we know he has that upper echelon talent, but yeah, and he showed it this year too. It is just like okay, we got to do a season of this,
Yeah.
We can't do 3 months of this. Can that tie bow on the BMW?
Yes, it can.
Because you, Nick, are our resident ladies amateur golf. Like you've been very vocal about how much you think that the women's amateur golf game is going to like just continue to get better and better. And we really saw that on the LPGA tour this week at the CPKC Women's Open. Obviously it was, Kiara Romero, who we've talked a lot about, got off to a blazing start. Didn't quite finish as hot, but still finishes T23, but that's with a 75 on Sunday. But then you also had Aphrodite Deng, who is still an amateur, finishes T7. And she's still in high school, actually. She's committed to Stanford, I believe, right? Fairly recently, earlier this summer, but is, still in high school. What were your main take? And obviously, I can't say CPKC Women's Open without saying that Miyu Yamashita absolutely ran away with this, won by 9 shots, set an LPGA Tour scoring record. Go wherever you want with everything I just said, Nick, but it was a pretty busy weekend on the LPGA Tour.
Yeah, absolutely. Like as you said, we can't talk about this week without talking about Miyu Yamashita. She absolutely ran away with this event. She's the fastest Japanese player to 4 LPGA Tour wins. Did it in just 41 career starts. 25 years old. Not technically one of these young guns, but still a very young player on the PGA Tour or LPGA Tour. Excuse me. Been a very consistent player this year, been at the top of the leaderboard a lot. A lot of this weekend got, a lot of the credit this weekend went towards Kiara Romero. There was a lot of headlines there around her debut. And as you mentioned, for like the first 3 days, just scrolling through the leaderboard, I had no idea Nelly Korda was in this field and finished T23. The more you know.
I will say the one thing about Miyu Yamashita that I want to shout out. I just looked it up because you mentioned it. She is only 25, and again, like you said, that doesn't necessarily, when we're talking about high schoolers like Aphrodite Deng, it doesn't feel like you can, or even Gina Titakul, who is, what is she, 21 or 22 now? It doesn't feel like 25 qualifies as one of those younger players, but you also have to remember that Miyu Yamashita came up through the Japan LPGA program, and she has 13 career victories on the JLPGA, which that takes a lot of time. It's not like when you're talking about players like Aphrodite Deng, who's Canadian, or a lot of these players like Kiara Romero, who came up through, she was at Oregon. She came up through like U.S. golf. Like you get a lot more. You're introduced at a much younger age directly to the LPGA Tour, whereas somebody like Miyu Yamashita went to the Japan Ladies PGA Tour first before coming to America. So there's like that's the time gap that you have to build in there. And again, she already had a very successful career on the JLPGA before coming over.
Right. So, just looking at Kiara Romero's just weekend, I don't know if you want to get that going on your screen share and will, but her first round was like her debut round on the LPGA Tour was incredible, or her debut professional round, I should say, but was absolutely incredible. 6 under, 64, was, I believe, 2 shots off the lead, was pretty close to the lead throughout her first round.
Bogey free too.
Yeah, bogey free.
No birdies on par 5s.
Yeah, that's just
there were shots out
in
there.
Its own right. Yeah. The cracks started to show a little bit on Friday. Made bogey on the first hole, made another bogey on the 6th, but put together 5 birdies, a respectable 3 under 67. The weekend was kind of when things kind of started she kind of started to run out of gas a little bit. Just a 1 under 69 with a bogey on the last hole on Saturday, and then it just even par 35 on the front 9, 5 over 40 on the back 9. Went from
5 over on the last 6 holes too, just to go from 1 under on the round to 5 over.
Like, could have potentially, like, if she had stayed at that 10 under round, like could have been looking at a top 10 in her professional debut. Just unfortunately sort of ran out of gas this week. Didn't really have it towards the later stages, but still very impressive to be getting that experience. There were arguments for her to be named one of the captain's pick for the Solheim Cup, and a la Jackson Koiven, which, quite frankly, I wouldn't have hated it, to be honest. Like, she definitely has that potential. She has the match play potential. Like, she's demonstrated that throughout her career. So I wouldn't hate that, but just an unfortunate end to her week, but a very, very impressive debut in and of itself, and I'm excited to see what she could do at her next tournaments. The big storyline, however, outside of Kiara Romero, was Aphrodite Deng, the Canadian herself, Aphrodite Deng, who was playing this week as an amateur, had an even par first round, 3 under on Friday. That's with an 8 on a par 5, by the way.
This Thursday is this, man, 8. Yeah, these are great psycho scorecards, just right out of the gate to come out of here with. I mean, how 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pars, 11 non-pars, a double. I can't count that well, but 6 birdies, 4 bogeys, round 2, that 8, and then just 6 birdies to follow it up. If I make an 8 on a par 5, this is not what the rest of my scorecard looks like. It's going to be a lot more 8s. Not 6.
So that's just impressive in its own right, to be able to respond in that way. Kind of fired herself, kind of contended, and then really, that's not even the most impressive round. Her Saturday round was a bogey-free 7 under 63, which is great. And then 1 under on her final day, just wasn't really able. Slow start on the front 9, but bogey-free 32 on the back 9, was able to secure a T7 finish.
Just to confirm,
I mean,
I just looked it up to confirm. She's 16 years old. So just a 16-year-old just shot a 63 on the LPGA tour, which is just not like it goes to what you've been saying all year that like she was born in 2010, according to my initial
Jesus.
Google. Am I wrong? Am I right? I think I'm right.
I really hope you're wrong because I
Uh,
feel ancient, but
yeah, I know. Well, Nick, I was born before 2000. But it's nuts. I mean, for her to be going out there and shooting a 63, not to mention, like I said, like she went from after the 8 she made on Friday, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus 7, 13, 13 straight, 13 birdies before she made her next bogey, which is insane. I'd be curious I should have checked through this. I wonder what her like best ball was if you just took all 4 of her rounds. If you just took best ball across her 4 rounds,
that's a good
I bet you it's like a 58 or something like that.
Yeah, we might have to come back to you on that one tomorrow, but yeah, and she's not going to go to Stanford until 2028.
That's nuts, man. That's like actually ridiculous.
Like this is a player that there hasn't really been a lot of players like Akshay Bhatia or Blades Brown have made it sort of not popular, but made it at least common to see these stars divert and not go to college. And, she's probably, I'm not going to say she's ready right now because she is 16. I'm not going to put that pressure on her right now. But in 2028, like, who's to say where she is? Where is she in Wagger right now? Let's, okay, so Kiara Romero is still technically the number 1 in Wagger. That's going to change very soon. Aphrodite Deng is already up to 8th in Wagger. So
yeah, that's ridiculous. Again, 16 years old. Also, I think I did the math. I probably did it wrong because I was doing it really fast, but I'm pretty sure she shot a 13 under par 57 on her best ball over the course of the week.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah.
So yeah, she's gonna be really good. That's a name that you're definitely gonna want to keep an eye on. Yeah.
Masters she's going to be really good.
Yeah, she might be good. So
yeah, it was a great week for it. And again, we've talked a lot about the young women who performed incredibly, but again, Miyu Yamashita, 23 under. Nick was telling me before we got on air, that is the 257 strokes, I should say. It's a par 70. So 257 strokes over the course of the entire tournament is an LPGA scoring record. We just, probably took too long to throw that out there.
Yeah.
But worth mentioning.
Really impressive in and of its own right. So, we had Kiara Romero and Aphrodite. Nothing more on?
No, sir.
Beautiful. All right. So we had Aphrodite Deng and Kiara Romero showing out. We also had around the world, we had Mega Gane winning her first career, or winning her professional. Hold on. I'm going to get this. She won her first professional tournament at the Wild Horse Ladies Golf Classic in a playoff, no less. She's another one where, she's absolutely won it at in the second hole of playoff. She won 19 under, 63 on her first round, or on her second round, excuse me. She's going to be very good. She's had a really impressive amateur career. She's a U.S. amateur champion as well. Like,
that is so many birdies.
Oh, you're just loving this, Will.
It's 9 birdies, dude. That's insane. She birdied half the holes in round 3. She also made 3 birdies, but she birdied half the holes.
Let's see it.
Oh my god. She birdied 9 holes also on Friday.
Oh my god.
Jesus.
That's yeah. Insane, there is. If you've taken one thing from this podcast, is that Will, as you mentioned, that you said I'm like the resident women's amateur correspondent, which sure, I will gladly take that mantle because there are some great amateur players that are coming through the pipeline, and I would say I'm more excited for the direction of women's professional golf than I am for men's professional golf.
And you're saying that less than, or I guess, 14 hours before we have Brian Rolap unveil like an entirely new schedule for 2028.
Literally. So there is a lot to be excited about, and you already have players like Kiara Romero making her debut, but you have the Mega Ganes, the Paulo Martin San Pedro, the Maria Jose Marines, like really great players that are coming through the pipeline. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, and you mentioned too something like just amateur golf in general. We've talked about this definitely ad nauseum at this point. Is the talent of PGA Tour university graduates and what we've seen from Ben James, from Jackson Coyven, from Tommy Morrison, and now from our very own Wildcat Nick. We got one on the PGA Tour Americas. A Wildcat
Yep,
got his first win. You mind
that's right.
giving us you've worked closely with Daniel more than I have, so you have a little you can talk more to his personality. I can kind of just look at the stats here. I'm going to trust you to
Yeah,
take
for
this
sure.
a little
So
bit deeper than I can.
Daniel Svard, Northwestern graduate of this past year, has been playing on PGA Tour Americas, courtesy of PGA Tour University, and in his fourth career start, got his first professional victory. Just the latest of very good golfers to come out of Northwestern. You have obviously Daniel this week. Cameron Adam is currently playing on the DP World Tour as well, courtesy of the Global Amateur Pathway. So some very good golfers to come out of Northwestern recently. Daniel's just been he's been playing very well on the PGA Tour Americas. Obviously won in a playoff. Just he had mentioned as well playing on the Sunday didn't really have his greatest stuff to open out the round, but made sure that he kept grounded, didn't shoot himself out of the tournament, battled, was able to stay alive for the playoff with Aiden Duncan, got it done on the second hole with a par. You could just see the emotions of he had like a little short comebacker, taps it in, and just immediately, like, you could just see the emotions really settle in. And so, 3 over through 5, and then didn't make a bogey the rest of the way, just stayed alive and battled. I've had the pleasure of working with Daniel through Northwestern Athletics. First and foremost, he's really tall, like really, really tall. You did well.
I was going to ask you who's taller, Tommy Morrison or Daniel Svard.
That's a tough one. That's a really tough one. I'd say it's pretty even, honestly. You watch.
You got to get him to go back to back.
Literally, you watch Daniel take a swing. It is the most like arms focused. Like his entire body just contorts, and it's a very impressive swing. Hits the ball a mile too, and he's just a great personality to work with. In terms of like just when I've been like scheduling interviews with him, he's always been very good to me. Very very willing to help out. Very easy to work with as well. So definitely someone that I've been rooting for throughout his professional journey, and so really excited to see what he can do the rest of the way. He's up to 16th in the PGA Tour Americas rankings. The top 10 get Korn Ferry cards for the next year. How many?
4 events left.
4 events left. Okay. So you
4 left.
read my mind.
The Tour Championship, so I don't know if there's some sort of like you have to be, this tall to ride you, but obviously he'll be in there, and
he is more than tall enough.
So, but he will be in there as the 16th ranked player. He'll be in that Tour Championship. But yes, he, and again, it's kind of similar to what we talked about with Tommy Morrison again, right? Like, not to do a height game. That's not what I'm trying to do, but Tommy Morrison came onto the Korn Ferry Tour through PGA Tour University and almost immediately earned himself a PGA Tour spot with 4 straight top 10s, including a win, maybe 5 straight top 10s, including a win. I forget exactly what the order of operations was. I think it was 5, but like Daniel Svard, it took him 4 to actually win. Should Daniel Svard stack up a couple more top 10s in the next couple of weeks, like looking at a pretty good chance for him to find his way to the Korn Ferry Tour next year.
Yeah, and from there, like, there's pathways to qualify for the PGA Tour, or is there? We'll find out tomorrow. We have no idea what the future of the PGA Tour Americas holds, but that's just a great feel good story. You know, we've been very supportive of our Wildcats this year, be it Matt Fitzpatrick, David Lipsky, Luke Donald, even. So really, really happy for Daniel.
Yeah, we get to be supportive of Luke Donald this year, and then next year we can turn against him again when the Ryder Cup happens.
Exactly.
But until then, we can be Luke Donald fans.
Do you see I think when Rory was putting out on 18, there were USA chants going.
Of course there were. You know how I feel about USA chants. I think it is. Yeah. It is stupid.
I was surprised it took that long. I will say my one last point on BMW, and then we can call it a day. The Jim Nance just has so many great lines. He's been great throughout his entire career. Probably the one that really stood out to me the most was, just as St. Louis was a stepping stone for Lewis and Clark to discover the rest of America, St. Louis was the stepping stone for Wyndham Clark to potentially be player of the year. I'm like, I heard that. I'm not quoting it properly, probably, but I heard that from the TV. I'm like, just bars. Absolute bars.
He's got it. That's a little bit long for my liking, but yeah, you could go down the list of countless ones, even in the last 3 years, that have been incredible. So don't know how he comes up with them. I'm sure there's a lot of research. I bet you there's like a lot more behind the scenes that goes into those.
Oh, absolutely.
Even, you or I know.
I wonder if he has like a notepad of like, if Rory wins, say this. If Wyndham wins, say that.
Certainly, like on Sunday, like before Sunday at the Masters, he's got like a tree with many branches of who could possibly win, with like a little quip for each one.
Yeah, definitely.
But elsewhere around the world, Yuta Sugiura won his first Korn Ferry Tour event, very a la Wyndham Clark, birdied his last 3 holes to do so. He's all the way up to 23rd. Another player to watch, like Nick said. The pathway for the Korn Ferry Tour to the PGA Tour is top 20. So keep an eye on that with a couple events to go. We talked about Mega Gane. We talked about Daniel Sfard, the last one. We also had Scott Jameson winning on the DP World Tour at the Nexo Championship. But those are all the ones I had, Nick. That's it for this week.
That's a busy week. And that's without the President's Cup automatic selections being released as well. We got that at the conclusion of yesterday's round. So we have the 6 automatic sneaking this in right at the end here. But our 6 automatic qualifiers are Scotty Scheffler, Cam Young, Wyndham Clark, Sam Burns, Russell Henley, and Colin Morikawa. Now, I like every single one of those picks. I don't see a problem with any of them. I think those are maybe not the 6 best American players in the world, but those are like 6 solid players that if I had to, we've definitely griped about the automatic qualifying, and maybe that's going to be readjusted for the Ryder Cup in 2027. But
can you read them out one more time?
Yes, that would be Scotty Scheffler, Cameron Young, Wyndham Clark, Sam Burns, Russell Henley, and Colin Morikawa.
Russell Henley is one of the automatics?
Mm-hmm.
And not
That's
Chris
a little
Goddard.
Surprising. I don't quite understand why Russell Henley is an automatic qualifier, but
because I'm curious, because I meant to actually look into this stuff before, but with Jim Furyk announcing that the Ryder Cup changes are happening and that they're like reevaluating how players automatically qualify, they're changing things, and I realized that the President's Cup also does it their own way and also differently from both the FedEx Cup standings and also differently from the Ryder Cup, which makes no sense, but we can cross that bridge another day. They must have some. I'm trying to figure out, just by looking at FedEx Cup standings, you have, if we were to do it that way, you have Scotty, Wyndham, Cam Young, Chris Goddard, Colin Morikawa, Sam Burns, and then you'd get Xander Schauffele, then you'd get Jacob Bridgman, and then you'd get Russell Henley. I'm just trying to. I was surprised to hear the Russell Henley name a bit. I guess I just want to take a quick glance at his 2025 because I'm guessing it's carried by that. To be honest with you, because he got T10 at the Open, T10 at the U.S. Open. And yeah, I'm guessing it's carried a little bit by past major performances last year.
Yeah, winner at the Arnold Palmer as well. Had 2 T2s on the year. T2 at the Tour Championship.
This year, I guess to his credit, he's got the Charles Schwab this year. Like, he hasn't done nothing. He's got a T3 at the Masters, T9 at the Open.
Like, I would be. I think. Do
Chris
I think
Goddard?
he?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm surprised it's over.
I when I say I'm not mad of any of those picks, I mean that, obviously there are people that should be automatic qualifiers over them, but I'm not mad of any of those 6 players representing
Of course not.
us at the
No,
President's Cup.
and Chris Gotterop's going to be the first captain's pick. If he's
Absolutely.
not, I will riot. Or maybe Xander, but he'll be one of the first couples captain's pick. Like, he'll be on this team, no question. And the only reason I reacted that way is because it makes me want to figure out how the hell they do this automatic qualifying stuff, because that seems odd to me that that seems like it's improperly weighted if Russell Henley's getting in over Chris Gotterop just by who's playing the best golf is what we want on that team, and obviously it doesn't quite represent that, but we can dig into that another day. Maybe for tomorrow I'll come back with a better review.
Yeah, because that was another bubble watch too. Is Ben Griffin gonna stay on the automatic qualifier list? And like, no disrespect to Ben Griffin, but he should not be anywhere near this team. He's had a really rough year, and so he fell out of those rankings this weekend. So we don't have to worry about that. But good. We'll see who the captain's picks are, and we'll run from there. But
my captain's pick would be Chris Gotterup, Xander Schauffele. Man, it gets tough after that, to be honest with you. I guess I'll throw Jackson Coyben a bone.
Yeah, we're at the hour 30. Let's do this tomorrow.
If Patrick Cantlay plays really well next week, we can give him a shout. Okay. Yes. Coming up, we got next on the T4A. We will be coming at you, I believe, tomorrow. We got Brian Rolap's press conference early tomorrow morning regarding who knows what, because there's 1,000 different things that need addressing, and that's not his fault necessarily. I'm very excited to hear about all of them, but he can only do so much in what I assume will be a 30-minute to an hour press conference. That will be tomorrow morning. So we will obviously come with a reaction to that tomorrow evening, but we will also do a little bit of a Tour Championship preview. Won't be anything crazy. It's kind of similar to what we've done for this, more storylines than it is course review and stuff like that. But we'll be coming at you. I think tomorrow evening is the plan. After that, as usual, we'll be recapping the Tour Championship on the Monday following and looking towards, I guess, kind of pivoting towards the President's Cup after that. I mean, we've got straight into the off season, we've got some business. I mean, President's Cup, Curtis Cup, Walker Cup, lots of good
Solheim,
stuff.
not
Solheim
the Sondheim.
Cup. Well, yeah, not the Sondheim, the Solheim. Is that next? It's the weekend after this weekend, correct?
I believe so.
It's Labor Day weekend, Memorial Day weekend, whichever one that is.
It's not Memorial Day weekend, I'll tell you that one. But
Memorial Day is. I always mix up which one's in May and which one's in September. That's my problem. Labor Day versus Memorial Day.
Yeah, as someone whose birthday is on Memorial Day weekend, I'm pretty sure it's in May.
Okay, well, we will be coming at everybody with that tomorrow. Our socials, they're all over the screen. You can find them. Twitter at CenterCupPod, TikTok and Instagram at CenterCup.pod, and then our email, centercup.pod@yahoo.com. Hit us with constructive compliments. No criticism, please. Tell Nick about how much you love his, I believe that's an AS Roma shirt. I don't really know.
Yes, it is.
They did play today, so I'm assuming 1-4-0 I saw. Good for you.
Absolute dismantling.
Yeah, Nick said he was going to be yelling at his TV after I saw that. So I was like, dude, I feel like you're probably not yelling at your TV very much.
Oh, I was not. I was very happy. It's way too early to start thinking of anything, but like I'm very happy with what I saw today.
Of course. With that, Nick, any final thoughts?
Yay or nay? Do we get a Tiger sighting tomorrow?
Oh, are we? Oh, because it's the Tour Championship. I guess the last time we saw him, right, was when he introduced Brian Rollup,
right,
at the press conference. I'll go with yay. I'll go with he does it again. If he did it last time, why not now? I mean,
yeah,
we'll see. I would go with yay. What about you? Would you say yay or nay? You'd say yay.
Yeah, I think it's probable. I had that thought just in my mind just now. So.
Well, for background, he's on the committee to help decide all these things. He's the chair of the committee that Brian Rollup is using to help decide all the schedule changes and everything. So he has relevance to be there. It's not just showing face. It is also just showing face, but kind of not. With that, we're going to leave you. Thank you all for listening. If anybody's still here at an hour, 33 and 55 seconds, thank you for listening for so long. You could have watched a movie, but instead you chose to spend it with Nick and I. But we'll be back tomorrow. With a lot to break down, I'm sure, from the Brian Rollup. Lots of hypothesizing is going to be done tomorrow afternoon, and I'm really excited about it.
It's going to be a good episode. You're not going to want to miss this one.
No, we will catch you. Thank you all for listening very much. We'll see you tomorrow.